he's calling Israel to humble themselves, follow him again, worship him again, submit to him again, just like their fathers did, because God has pledged himself to them for their good. This is Fixed on Jesus. Hey everybody, welcome to the Runaway Chain that is Fixed on Jesus, the podcast where we talk about all things, really a lot of things that anything that kind of comes to our mind or that people ask about, and we connect them to our mission and ministry here at Center Church. As always, my name is Rich, and I'm joined by Mark Johnson Jr. just
Hello.
Across the table. And we also have behind the glass, we have Heather Corbitt, who pulls the levers and pushes the buttons and makes us sound better than we actually are.
That's for sure. She definitely makes us sound better.
I don't understand that sound effect, Mark.
She's going to cover it with her slick editing skills.
Okay, that's the lamest sound effect I have ever heard. Don't impugn the email bell, because the email bell is awesome.
It is.
And so
we had to make a special stop for that.
That's an email bell. But anyway, what are we talking about today, Mark?
Well, I've been inspired through Halloween.
Okay, Halloween.
This
sounds very dangerous from the jump here.
I know. Maybe I should. No,
are you gonna invite me to eat a lot of candy?
No.
Oh, okay.
I know I'm not a stranger, but you still shouldn't take candy from me. I was going to invite you.
That's awkward too.
I was going to invite you if you want to dress up for the next recording.
Dress up in a costume?
Yeah.
I would like never to do that.
But do you want to know what
I'm actually very bothered and perturbed that you would even suggest that, because it's really
I got this
weird.
Cool costume that I wanted to wear. I didn't get a chance to wear it.
And what would that be?
It's a clown costume.
A clown costume.
And I want to see how you
I would
react.
respond poorly to a clown and a clown costume.
Because you, like my fear of dogs, you have a fear of clowns.
I have a healthy...
You can go ahead and justify it like I tried to do. Maybe we can pray for you too.
No, there's no prayer needed. When in Genesis chapter 3...
You're going to go to the Bible for clowns?
I'm going to the Bible, right. Okay. You need to just listen to me here.
Guy.
Are you asking my opinion? Okay.
All right, I'll stop.
In Genesis chapter 3, when Eve ate of the fruit and the fall happened, clowns came into the world.
Stop.
I am not kidding. And so before that, no. Before that, there were no clowns. And so then when Satan comes into the garden and she listens and believes Satan, now there are clowns.
Oh.
And so I'm going to say that's not a coincidence. And so where you have an irrational fear of dogs, what I have is a healthy fear of something that's
Is it dangerous?
No, it's a direct connection to the fall of mankind, clowns.
So it scares you. So you just tied your fear.
Well, I'm scared of
to the
work.
Bible.
I'm scared of things that reflect the work of Satan. So if you want to say that's fine.
All right. I'm definitely gonna wear it.
You're not around.
Just so you guys know,
do not. I do not.
No, his fears are rational. According to Genesis.
That is rational.
We should still pray for him about this.
You can pray for me, but pray for yourselves if you like clowns, because the problem is a you problem, not a me problem.
All right. So into our topic, now that we're done making fun of each other, at least for now, how do we read the biblical prophets?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, why don't you name, well, I guess we could go this way.
Well, I can name the biblical prophets. Sure. So you've got the Pentateuch, Genesis to Deuteronomy. Then you have narratives from Joshua to Esther. Then you have what's called the writings from Job down to Song of Solomon. And then from Isaiah all the way down to Malachi, those are the prophets. And the prophets traditionally have been broken up into two categories, the major prophets and the minor prophets. The major prophets are the ones that just major in the sense that they were longer.
Yeah.
Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel are the major prophets. The rest are minor because they're smaller.
Short. Some of them are one page.
Yeah. Like Nahum, Obadiah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So those are the prophets in the Old Testament.
Most people think of prophets as Nostradamus. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Nostradamus. He's
Nostradamus.
the famous. Was he French?
He was French. Yeah.
Okay, because he predicted things that would happen in the future, and people can make Nostradamus say anything. And so he predicted what would happen in Western culture and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He was French in the 1500s. Astrologer, physician, seer, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And he was predicting the future. So is that what you see here in the biblical prophets?
No.
Okay.
So the word prophet in an Old Testament sense is not going to primarily mean that they predict the future. What a prophet is a spokesperson for God.
Okay.
And primarily each of the prophets, if you read them, they have a message. As we know, God made a covenant with the nation of Israel, and he pledged himself to Israel, and Israel was to follow him with all their heart. And so when you read the Old Testament, you find that Israel did not do that. They failed. And so the prophets were God's gracious response to the people, because the people gave themselves to all kinds of different idols. They worshiped other gods. The people were completely unfaithful in the main, and they would do things like offer up their children to the evil god Molech. And so what God does with the prophets from Isaiah all the way down to Malachi, he graciously sends spokesmen who speak authoritatively for him to call people back to what's called covenant faithfulness. And so the faithfulness is, they're just like, hey, listen, here's the idea. The idea is when you follow the Lord with all your heart, you will be blessed. And for those of you that break the covenant, you will be cursed. And so that's a reminder that, you've got this blessings and curses sort of idea that is brought forward from the Old Testament. And you see this stitched all the way through the book of Deuteronomy, especially. And so the goal of the prophet is to call people back to faithfulness to the Lord, not tell the future.
Okay. So do we read the prophets in the same way we would read a gospel or a narrative? How would one interpret the prophet? So, does that remind us that we need to be called back to the Lord? Is it a reminder?
Well, yeah.
Of
So,
repentance?
I think we need to first of all recognize that the first audience is not 21st century Americans.
That's what I think one of the most common misconceptions is they'll read it and say, "Oh, they're talking to me and my people group."
Right.
But you're saying understanding the context and the history
is
important.
It is. And so we need to remember that the prophets first. So anytime we interpret the Bible, we want to make sure that we understand that the meaning is found in the words and not what we feel. Mm-hmm. There is one interpretation, or it means one thing, and there's many applications. And so what we have then is with the prophets, we need to recognize the original audience. The original audience was not 21st century Americans. The original audience is
not clowns either,
and definitely not. He spoke to the clowns. He'll speak to the clowns in the lake of fire. Anyway, that's a joke. Everybody, don't email me if you like clowns. But anyway, you made me lose my train of thought now, Mark.
Well, this train,
clowns.
We don't know where it's going anyway.
We don't, but I know clowns are not invited on this train. I can tell you that right now.
Well, dogs aren't either, so.
Yeah, they are.
Keep it moving.
And so anyway, what we have here with the prophets is they are meant to call people back to this kind of faithfulness, right? And so we need to recognize that the audience is ancient Israel. And so there was an agreement that God made with Israel that he does not and does not hold with any other nation. So even when we see things like, if my people will humble themselves and pray, I will heal their land, that is not talking about the United States. And so I think that's not a good verse to use to be the National Day of Prayer, because the land and the people are not the Americans.
Is that what they use?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not Americans, and it's also not. It's not our country. The primary application there is he's calling Israel to humble themselves, follow him again, worship him again, submit to him again, just like their fathers did, because God has pledged himself to them for their good. God has not pledged himself to the United States in the same way. And so what we need to do is ask ourselves, okay, when I hear the prophets, and as they call Israel back to covenant faithfulness, what does that mean for me? Like, as we overhear this conversation, what do we do? And I think one thing we do is recognize, number one, sin is serious. And the Lord doesn't just go, no big deal.
Yeah.
Even as believers, we need to be people who follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And who take sin seriously. Now, we don't go to the temple to worship like the prophets might have called the people to do, or bring sacrifices. We look to the sacrifice that is Jesus Christ. So we have a better opportunity. We have a gracious high priest. We don't have to go to the priest at the temple and take our animals. We can go to the high priest, who is the Lamb of God, and ask for forgiveness, knowing that we will be restored, because the blood that he spilled is blood that still covers. And so those things, we need to have that in mind as we think about how to interpret Old Testament prophets. Now, that's just kind of scratching the surface, but that's a quick and easy way to recognize how to read him.
Yeah. I know this is going to be a common question, and we might end up doing a completely separate episode on it, but I could ask it two ways. Can you explain the difference between the gift of prophecy and a prophet?
Sure.
And then also the second part, would there be a modern day prophet today?
There's no prophets like the Old Testament prophets, right? Because like in the Old Testament, when Micah says something, people are not called to pray and decide whether that's for them. It's not.
Yeah.
But 1 Corinthians 12, when he uses the same word, prophet, speaks in a church service, the people there are called to pray and consider if that's for them. So there's clearly something different that's happening in the New Testament versus the Old.
Okay.
Right?
So the gift of prophecy is...
So I would say that the way it works now is the gift of prophecy is one of those gifts that is still active in the church today, but that prophecy does not function like the Old Testament. The Old Testament prophets were spokesmen for God. Nobody apart from, the only way we're spokesmen for God is if we preach, if we read the scriptures and preach them faithfully. And so prophets are not called to be spokesmen for God in the same way that they were in the Old Testament.
Okay. Because we have the canon.
The canon is closed.
Right.
Yeah,
but prior. Closed.
Yeah. And prophecy today is for the upbuilding, encouragement, and consolation of the church. That is not that's definitely not what Jeremiah is shooting for. Upbuilding, encouragement, and consolation. He's not doing that. He's saying, hey, I want to afflict you with the truth because you're not responding.
Right.
So they're very, very different.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I know that's a popular topic in culture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that pretty much wraps up this. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or topic suggestions or things you might want to go deeper about that this made you think of, email us at
senatorgilbert.com.
Production.
Production is, boy, I just dropped the ball.
A clown just walked in. That's why.
I was not planning on you pointing to me there. Production at senatorgilbert.com. That's where the email will be received.
All right. Thank you. And you'll hear the bell if you email.
The email bell. Let's not wear that email bell out.
It's got some WD-40 on it.
It's fine. Let's not wear the email bell out.
Thank you, guys.
All right. God bless.
See you soon.